Welcome back to another episode of the Finance Bible podcast. You're joined with myself, Zeke, and fellow co-founder of the Finance Bible, Oscar. Mate, how are you?
Thank you. Just want to say, if it's your first time listening to the Finance Bible podcast, welcome.
Welcome.
It's good to have you. Good to have you here today. Hopefully, you learn a few things. Hopefully, you share it around and stick with us for the journey, and to also help you reach financial freedom. Today's episode, last week we put out a Instagram video on Friday, a story actually, of basically just asking the Q&A, popping your questions. We were planning on answering them from the story, but because there was a lot more than we actually thought, and some of them are quite in-depth, we thought we'd jump on the podcast and actually make an episode out of it.
Keep flicking through the inquiries, the general information you want to know. We'll compile it. If we don't answer it, we will eventually. Before we jump into it, guys, everything we're saying here, two young lads having a chat, anything we do is not financial advice. If we say something answering your question, we don't know enough about you. We can't give you the advice. It's not advice. Secondly, on that note, give us a follow on Instagram.
Oh, that's great.
Now, guys, I picked out my favourite question that I want to start on. Now, I think they've done a little bit of spell failure here, so I'll correct it for them on behalf of them. This came from a Bronte down near Wollongong. It says, "My partner's a naughty boy and has bad spending habits. How do I pull him online?" Now, I believe it's meant to say in line. So, Oscar, naughty boy, bad spending habits. How do you pull him in line?
The angle I would take with that is just have a generic discussion. Sit down doesn't have to be something formal, with your partner, figure out their history, like their upbringing. Like, for example, if their family were massive spenders and they were growing up in a family that, they saw their parents spend money, didn't really know what was going on with their money. So they're in the mindset that it doesn't really matter. So their whole persona of money can be completely different to what yours might be if you were brought up in a household where, your parents were saving, investing, all these things. So I think it's extremely important to get to know their past money behaviors first before you kind of make a move. And once you learn that, you'll be able to navigate through the best way to help them. It might be giving them a different spending plan or guiding them with, showing them what you do. So once you get paid, you might have a few different accounts, share it with them, like instead of them spending all their money and probably your money too for the future. So that's probably what I would look at first.
Yeah, money works so differently for everyone. It's such an objective and subjective kind of thing, which is just a weird concept. But people work in different ways. Everything you said, I completely agree with. The other thing is people's actual learning could help. I think you need to educate them on what they're doing. So one form of education, which some people won't class as education, is discipline, punishment. When they've done something they shouldn't have, get them in trouble. Just say, mate, that's not on. Wooden spoon, kapow. Second form of education is actually teaching them what they're doing.
I think that should be the first form.
Possibly. But if they're spending, $40 a week on boyfriend's being a naughty boy, let's say it's OnlyFans or something, sports bet, whatever it is, 40 weeks over 52 weeks, which is a year, how much does that add up to? Like, you're talking over $2,000. And then what's that up to over 3 years? And what would it be if that was invested? Or what could they put it towards? Do they like specific things like sporting that they could invest that into better gear for them to train? Or is there something they like and would better their career? Is there something they want to learn about? So for me, that would be the best way to teach me. Just like, mate, you're a stat guy. You love figures. You just cost yourself $400,000 in retirement, you goose. And I'd be like, oh, damn. All right, what do I do?
Yeah, so I guess, Bronte, great question to start off the episode. But yeah, just have a chat, get to know the past better. Like Zeke said, relate it to what he's into. So he might be a stat man, so relate to that. And really, if you really do need more help, definitely seek professional help, like a financial advisor.
Or there's a gambling helpline if that's the problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of helplines out there, but I don't think that
Oh, mate,
is the problem.
You never know. Mate, what's another question we've had sent in? You take one. Pick one out of the hat.
Let's have a look. So Jessica from Melbourne, 26 years old. So, hey guys, I've built up $30,000 in credit card debt over the last 10 years. Also took a $15,000 personal loan out when I was 18 for a gap year, needing to pay this off because I want to start my journey to financial freedom, but I'm very lost. What do I do? Good question. So, firstly, you're not alone. A lot of people, especially the younger age group, 18 to 30, for example, have a lot of consumer debt. So consumer debt is credit cards, personal loans, car loans.
Bad debt.
Bad debt. So it's not really helping you in the future. So what I would say in your situation there, Jessica, is start with the smallest amount of debt that you have and start paying that off as soon as possible, or as frequent as you possibly can. So if you are at the moment putting aside $200 a week into an investment account, I would say stop doing that. Use that $200 a week to try and flush out your first debt, which is your credit card. Do you just check if that's the...
Yeah, it's a 30K credit card and 15K personal loan.
So I would, pop that in to flush out your personal loan first, due to the amount of that being lower than your credit card. One of our friends at My Millennial Money, Glenn James, actually speaks about this structure of the snowball effect of paying down debt. Like we said then, start with the smallest debt, really focus on paying that down as soon as possible. And once you've done that, firstly, your mindset you'll be up and about, you'll be ready to really start building a foundation again. Because consumer debt, at the time, it's a great idea, borrowing someone else's money to fund your lifestyle. I guess when you're 18, take on that loan to go to Europe. Makes sense. You might have not had the money at the time and you wanted to enjoy the time away with your friends. But a few years later, it really starts to impact you. So I would say start with the lowest debt, really focus on paying that down before you start investing or building a rainy day fund. Smash that down as soon as possible.
I'd probably go a different route personally, just because I'm a stats man, so I'd probably go for a bit of a different approach. But you've got the 30K credit card, you've got the 15K personal loan. I would assume that the personal loan will be a lower interest rate than the credit card. With the credit card, personally, I'd look at getting a balance transfer to another bank, like a 2-year free, no interest deal on the balance transfer. Get the money over there and slowly pay that down. Just keep making minimum repayments while paying off the personal loan, because you've got that locked in on an interest-free period. If you can't get a balance transfer, I'd actually look at paying off the card first, because the level of interest accruing on that 30 grand would be high as opposed to the personal loan. And then depending on the actual rate of the personal loan, like if it's say maybe sub 5 or 6% interest per year, I personally would look at investing in the share market before repaying that, or while making a small amount of repayments onto that, because it should grow more at 9% or 10% per year as opposed to the interest coming out at 5 or 6%. But that's in an ideal situation where your loan amount's low, you can get a balance transfer and that kind of thing.
Two different approaches, quite funny. Obviously, it doesn't matter what approach you pick. It's based on your personal circumstances and what you believe in. But there's more than one way to do this. You're not alone. A lot of people we've met, who are in that age bracket, even older as well, have been in worse situations. So there is light at the end of the tunnel.
From memory, I think Scott Pape does kind of the method you were talking about. Doesn't he recommend in his book, The Barefoot Investor, to start on the lowest amount?
I think he does. I haven't read that book for a while, but from memory,
I think he does a domino.
Yeah,
he gets rid of the smallest and then the next smallest.
Snowball, domino.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, so it's actually quite a common debt elimination strategy. But yeah, whatever you're more comfortable with, but definitely start paying that off one at a time.
The next one, we have a 35-year-old Nick, no location. He's been paying off debt since 18. For this purpose, we'll assume it's consumer debt because he hasn't actually specified, but you can imagine it would be. The rest of the question is, when can I start investing and where do I start investing? He spent 18 years or 17 years paying off the debt. That can go multiple ways. Like, if you've been paying off the debt for 18 years and you're 35 years old, there's a lot of different variables here. So first of all, this guy could have a family. He could not. It could be just him. It could be a partner. He could be renting. He could own a home. If you are sending questions through, guys, make sure they involve a bit of detail so that we can help you the best we can. But in this circumstance, there's a lot of variables. As a 35-year-old, I'd assume that you do have a partner and or a child, especially if you were paying back debt over the last 18 years. I'd put the two together and say you probably had some kind of family situation and found yourself needing a bit of extra money. Where can you start investing? If you're looking to invest, either A, you're renting comfortably, or B, you have your own home and you're looking to invest. Depends on your income too, and your partner's income, if there is one, and your cash flow. So if it's a small amount of money, you don't have a lot going on, you can't leverage very heavily, I would look at shares. The reason being, that's how I got into my first property. I got shares and crypto and built them up over time, liquidated them, and then leveraged into a property because I like the aspect of leveraging. If you've already got good savings or good shares or good crypto, at that point in time, I, again, personally, would start looking at property. What can I leverage? In today's market, it's tough to find the right kind of thing. So there's a lot of variables, but hopefully that gives a little bit of insight from my end. How would you answer that one?
I think you actually nailed that. I was going to say something quite similar. Start with shares. Obviously, we don't really know too much about your circumstances. So if this isn't answering your question, please message us privately on Instagram and or Facebook if you're in the Facebook community. But yeah, I personally would look at starting with shares, especially if you didn't have a cash buffer for a deposit for a property, because we do love investing in property here. Start small. There's heaps of different applications out there, like CommSec have CommPocket. You can literally start with as little as, what was it, $20 you said the other week?
I think 50.
Little as $50. There's IG, which is really good as well. I started on that one the other week. There's Superhero. There's even the micro invest in like Spaceship and Raise. Start small, build it up. Once you've learnt and you're kind of aware with what's going on in the investment market, listen to some podcasts like Equity Mates, for example, who are heavily in the stock market and investments. Personally, that's actually how I started investing in the stock market, which is quite funny seeing. Spoiler alert, they're coming on the podcast in a month or two. But anyway, let's say that for another time. But yeah, I'd start small investing, start dollar cost averaging, reinvest your dividends until you're in a position where you can liquidate for another asset, like a property, for example. We have Celeste from Sydney. So we have Celeste from Sydney asking, boys, what are your favorite personal finance books that I can learn the ins and outs? Great question. As you probably aware, or if you're not aware, I am a big fan of finance and personal development books. So personally for me, at the moment, I'll tell you what I'm reading right now. I'm reading the Glenn James My Millennial Money Sort Your Money Out book right now. I do enjoy it. I enjoy it quite a lot. I'm probably halfway through, but it's very up. It's up there with one of the best books I have read, Personal Finances. Probably number two. I do go on about this quite a bit, and in an Insta story the other month I did, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Zeke, you read that book as well.
Rich Dad
Robert
Poor Dad.
Kiyosaki, the man.
I actually just bought that for my little sister.
Yeah, he did.
She's only 16, but best finance book for beginning in my opinion.
Well, that was my first ever book I read, and I remember straight after when I finished it, I said to Mum, "I want to borrow debt. I want to borrow money. I want to get into I want to get into good debt." Obviously, I had no money to do that, but the book teaches you about the power of leveraging, which is borrowing banks' money to purchase an investment like property, for example, and shows you how, over the long run, you can create generational wealth. Another book which I am a fan of is To Sell is Human. So that's by Daniel Pink. That's more not necessarily a financial book, but more of a self-development, sales and communication, and really improving those techniques if you are in that industry. That kind of deep dives into the psychology of humans, how you can kind of persuade them and everything like that. So that's quite a good book on that end. And probably lastly, the She's on the Money book is actually pretty good. Gave that a read by Victoria Devine, or Devine. I think that's the way we say it. But yeah, that's a good book, good stepping stone to the Glenn James one. Definitely recommend reading some of those.
Haven't read a couple of the ones you mentioned there, but Rich Dad Poor Dad, got to give it a whirl. Kiyosaki's got a really good program outlined in that. Goes through his journey, how it's relevant today, even, what is it now, 25 years later?
25-year anniversary.
So there's an updated one for 25 years. And I've got to throw it out there, The Millionaire Next Door.
Yeah, I did audiobook that one.
The
So I can't really
Next
claim
Door.
that as a read.
Well, fair enough.
It's a listen. But that was good.
I love it. I just love statistics.
That was all about the stats of millionaires compared to the working class.
Yeah,
and how they spent their money, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't like a book, so to say. It was literally just stats. Like bang, 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 bang. And with that, you can clearly interpret different things and figure out what it means, how they operate, and draw the comparisons between you and them, or the differences. There's going to be a lot of them. I did that, and yeah, it's eye-opening.
There we have it. Our top books.
The next one along is from Susie.
Susie.
40-year-old.
Hello, Susie.
40-year-old, currently renting, tossing up to buy a home or to stay renting. Now, she's put it through as a home versus renting kind of question. This is going to vary pretty rapidly. For me personally, and I guarantee you it'll be different for Oscar. So I'm going to answer on behalf of both of us separately, and then I don't want you to confirm.
I will confirm or deny.
So for me, I'm going to rent forever. I could not be bothered owning a home. The reason being, I'm not interested in getting a family. I'm not interested in having my own space to develop and stuff. I'd rather rent 3 properties, one in Sydney, one in Dubai, and one in Gold Coast, and just enjoy my life. Invest. Get as many rental properties as I can, and other investments, and just keep paying rent forever. The reason I wouldn't buy a home and live that lifestyle, the more debt that I have to borrow to buy a home, or the more money I tie up in the home, just limits my investing capacity. And I don't need one. I'm happy as a tenant. I can run amok and do the things I need to do without having to worry about having my family growing up in a family home.
And I guess for you as well, renting, it doesn't really tie you up in one area. So you can literally live where you want if you are a renter, because you're not attached. You can literally take on a lease and leave it if you need. You might pay a few fees if things happen. But if you buy a house, for example, in an area you're not really that keen on, you're kind of stuck there for a while.
Yeah, and you've borrowed the money, you put yourself in the debt, you've tied up so much money. Whereas I think, on the other hand, and again, confirm or deny, because I'm speaking for you now, but Oscar's a big lover. Oscar will want to have a family, a wife, kids, and he wants to spoil the kids and allow them to grow up in a home, like a homey home. And that would mean the world to him, in my opinion.
Oh, very, very good, mate.
Now, is that true? You're going to want that as opposed to renting, right? Like, you might rent somewhere, but you want a home.
Before I get into that, yes. So I think rent vesting, like you were just saying, is a more logical approach if you are wanting to really build your wealth over time through investments, because you're not stuck with debt, for example. On the other end, though, you still can build your wealth and own a home. It just depends how you structure it. So for myself, I'm aiming, like yourself, mate, to get as many investment properties as I possibly can. The way I'm doing this, though, is I also want to have a family home with my family, because I think having a nice family home, it's more of an emotional purchase. But I think I've always wanted to have that with a wife, with kids. It's something pretty cute.
Just beautiful.
Which a lot of people would agree with as well. But
wait. What are you trying to say?
What?
A lot of people would agree with you. Is that inferring that would disagree with me?
No. I'm not saying I know a lot of people want to... Well, but everyone's grown up thinking they have to buy a house. All this pressure of owning a home. It is ridiculous pressure. You don't have to listen to what other people in society is telling you. But I am aiming to purchase investments first and then a home, as opposed to a home, then investments. So it depends, Susie, firstly on your current levels of debt. If you're maxed out in serviceability, we would have to check that with you, because that kind of changes how it all works. As before, we don't have enough information to go off. But as you guys are probably aware, Zeke and I have different thoughts to this one as well as before. So yeah, you can kind of do any of those, but it just depends on your goals, income goals, serviceability, what you have going on at the moment.
It's funny, none of it's really a right or wrong or yes or no answer. It's all looking to get somewhere. It's just how do you and what's more important to you, like what is happening.
Yeah.
Next one, mate. Do you want to pick one out?
Should I get a car loan or buy a car? From Jennifer up in Port Douglas.
Jennifer,
I love Port Douglas. I'm quite jealous you're actually at Port Douglas. Good question. In a perfect world, obviously buying the car outright would be, well, in my opinion, would be best case scenario. But by saying that, a lot of people can't just fork out 40 grand, 50 grand plus.
But can they fork out $3,000 for a little second-hand old 10-year-old Mazda that will function?
That's it. You need to think about, do you really need the newest car? Can you look at the same car, but on a second-hand on carsales.com and save a lot of money in interest and just pay it outright in cash? Car loans, as your car loan, you've got a car loan.
Yes.
Normally, the interest rate on car loans is quite insane. What's your interest rate on your car loan?
About 6%.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah,
but I don't. For a car loan,
I'd be fine with it being more even. The reason that I've got a car loan is purely for tax purposes, which brings me on to my next point. It brings me on to my answer, really. If you are not in a role where you can basically claim it all on tax and write it all off, I wouldn't get a car loan at all, personally. I'd be happy spending $5,000 on, whatever exists out there, an old 2005 Nissan Maxima or something. Brilliant car. But if you can claim all of your kilometres, claim the deduction, claim the depreciation, claim the interest, all the maintenance, all of that kind of stuff on the car, then although I wouldn't say it's more actually worth spending the extra money, the luxury that comes with that, for me, is worth it. Like, I'd much rather pay an extra $3,000 or $4,000 in interest to own a car while I'm claiming it all on tax anyway, as opposed to just not having the car that I want and saving $3,000 over the time the tax comes back anyway. Yeah.
See, for me, I'm in the mindset of just, if I want to buy it, I have to have the cash.
Bang, no McLarens for you, mate.
Yeah, but obviously things will change. At the moment, this time in my life, I will just, if I can't afford it, I can't get it. But I just look on car sales. Maybe a couple of years ago, I was going to buy a Ford Ranger because all my mates were going through a little bit of a
Ranger.
Yeah, we're all going through a bit of the time of our lives when everyone was frothing these Rangers.
I'm glad you didn't.
So am I. No hate to anyone who has a Ranger out there, just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, no. If you
at the time though, I thought it was sick. Me being a city boy in a ute, it looked pretty tough.
What were they setting you back then?
Well, I looked on car sales. I saw one for $30,000.
Oh, okay, that's not too bad.
I was like, ooh, that's all right. But at the end of the day, it's $30,000. Yeah. When you could really put that $30,000 into the stock market or save that for
another
property.
Part of my thing is like, yeah, sure, you could buy a $30,000 car with cash, but I wouldn't. I would still just I'd still get the loan and put the $30,000 into investing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at my interest rate anyway. If it was a bunch more, then yeah, sure, you'd probably pay it cash. But
and that also comes down to your goals, like our last question with Susie. Kind of, what is your financial goals? Are you wanting to retire younger with all this passive income? If so, maybe look for a cheaper car compared to what you're looking for at the moment. If you are looking for something quite expensive, and also, if you can't afford it, and if you do have a role with work, which you do use your car quite a lot, as Zeke said, it might be a good idea to get a car loan for the tax reasons behind that. So there are pros and cons there's no right or wrong answer. But hopefully that made sense and helped you with your question. If you have any other questions or you're still a bit confused by what we're saying, just message us. We can jump on a call.
We're running out of time, but one final question. We've got Otto from Frankfurt.
Frankfurt.
Yes.
Internationals made it to the Q&A.
Yeah. There was a couple there was one from Texas as well that we'll probably get back to next week. But
I'll tell you, those Texans, they love the potty.
They actually do. They're probably outside of Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. I think it goes Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Frankfurt, Texas.
Yeah. Well, because we have access to the listeners and who actually looks at the podcast, literally every single time, the first listener are the Americans. So you in Texas out there, or if we have more American listeners right now, thank you. And Otto, thank you, mate.
Yeah. So Otto is wondering property versus shares. Very, very simple question, that one, as in the way it's been brought to us. I think that for me personally, I would prefer property over shares once you've got the money to be in it.
Yeah.
The reason for that is if I have 100 grand in shares, guess what? That 100 grand is going to grow. Let's say it grows at 8% per year, which means it doubles roughly every 12 years with a bit of compound interest. Then the 100 grand in 10 years is 200 grand, and then it's 400 grand in 10 years after that. So 20 years turns into 400. With property, if I put that same 100 grand into a $800,000 property, so that's your 10% deposit and a bit of stamp duty on the land you've built to build or whatever, then that property at 800 grand, even growing at 6% per year, which is the average in Australia, by the way, it doubles every 12 years with a bit of compound. So let's just say it doubles once, even though we're running a 20-year comparison. It goes up to 1.6 million. That 1.6 million versus 400 grand is obviously going to generate greater returns. The 1.6 million is probably rented for something like 40 to 60 grand per year.
Mind you, Otto is overseas, so property market in Frankfurt, not too sure what the go is there. We're talking mainly about the Australian property market. Zeke's actually just whipping up Google right now as we speak to have a look at the average property growth in Germany. What have we got here?
There you go. They run pretty similar. It's a 5.1% over the last 11 years. So, yeah, in 20 years, it's still safe to say it's worth at least 1.6. So, even like over that 20 years, assuming you only pay off 200 grand of the loan, you've now got 300 grand of the loan paid off because you did a 100K deposit, and it's worth $1.6 million. So you still, like, take off the rest of the loan. Let's say you had a 500 grand loan on it. You still got $1.1 million worth of overall net asset there. Shares are still worth 400. Shares for me are a stepping stone into property.
Yeah, and I second that as well.
Well, there you go. Yeah. It's the easiest
I'm more of a property
answer you've ever had.
Yeah, it was. As you probably know, we are big into property, but investing in shares is the way to get to that property, the bigger investment asset, in our thoughts anyway. Everyone is different, but remember to diversify. So don't just throw everything into property.
I'd like to finish it off by saying, poker, no les dos. Why not have both? Diversify.
Diversify.
Bang. Shares, property.
Diversify.
Guys, that's probably it for today. There's a few more.
Probably a 30-minute episode. We like to keep them under 40 minutes, ideally.
Yeah.
Our podcast. So, yeah, obviously there's a few listeners out there which we didn't actually get to answering your questions. Apologies on that. We will make more of an effort, probably in the Instagram posts and or in another podcast Q&A one if we have a lot more coming through. But if you have any questions that you want to know now or ASAP, you can always just message the Finance Bible on Instagram because we're always on that. We will give you a personalized response and even jump on a phone call if you really want.
The questions are good. Keep them coming. When we get a certain portion, we just jump on and answer as many as we can. we'll just keep doing that every now and then. So yeah, just keep flicking them through and we'll do what we can.
That's it. And lastly, we say it every time, join the Facebook group, follow us on Instagram, follow the podcast on whatever streaming platform you're on. Do not miss an episode. It is going to be a good ride.
Actually, additionally, before we go, I think it's important to point out, this happened the other day and I feel kind of bad. If you ever come across us in public and you want to say hey, just come and say hey. We don't bite. We had someone message us and say, hey, I was at the markets the other week.
Yeah.
Up in Watson's Bay, and they came and said, mate, flick me a text or a DM on the Bible. Saw you out. Just gonna say hey. I said, mate, just do it. All good. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, no, we want to meet you guys.
Kill you or something.
We want to meet you guys and have a chat. It's good to meet some fans out there. Who would have thought we have fans?
Fans.
Fans.
Well, we might be pushing it there. We'll leave you with that.
See you guys.